Morning, morning, morning. We're gonna jump in and get started in just a minute here. Got something on my mind I want to share with everybody. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure everything is working properly. All right, good morning. So listen, today is going to kick off me doing something a little different, but still wanting to give back to the dev community. And I just want to have a little discussion around imposter syndrome Good morning, morning, morning. Just want to make sure everything is working properly. But I want to have a little bit of a discussion around imposter syndrome because I think it's very relevant, not just in the dev community, but just in general, particularly with those that may have started on one career path journey and now they find themselves transitioning or wanting to transition for one reason or another into something a little different. So just kind of want to talk about what that feeling is like, share some personal experiences, and also I want to review this pretty good article that I came across on Stack Overflow that is very relevant. It's a couple years dated, but still pretty relevant to today. Hey, good morning. Yeah, appreciate it. It's a little earlier than normal, but I appreciate you stopping by. Good morning, morning, morning. So look, this is a article written by Ira May, and it's from 2023. Still pretty relevant to today, but imposter syndrome, specifically in the dev community. Like I said, this can be something that anybody can experience, regardless of their current industry that they work in. Particularly if you are in one field of study and you're looking to do something a little different. This imposter syndrome feeling is something that any of us can feel, and it isn't something that's unnatural, but there's some things that you kind of want to realize and just kind of get your arms wrapped around, because you're going to have to work through that in order to take that next step. And honestly, you're probably a little better off than what you really realize. So with that said, I'm going to jump in and just get started. So the title of this article, and I'll share it in the description for anybody that would like to take a look at it and read it on their own, is what we talk about when we talk about imposter syndrome. And how does our emphasis on imposter syndrome keep us from having bigger, harder discussions about how to improve life for developers? And like I said, this isn't just something that's relevant for developers, it's really relevant for anybody, but we're going to talk about all things developers because that's something I'm passionate about, and I'm sure most of you are as well too. Hey man, good morning. I appreciate you checking me out. Yep. You got any questions? Just leave them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. So, but to start out, imposter syndrome, and it's basically doubting your abilities to point where you feel like a fraud. It's an evergreen topic of conversation among software developers. We've written about it here, there, and there are countless other articles about how to understand and overcome the feeling of imposter syndrome. So, if you don't know what that is, it's basically just a feeling that you aren't good enough, you aren't progressing enough. Everything that you do, you feel kind of stuck, and it impacts your confidence, and to an extent can impact your growth in that development journey as well. So recently we talked with Dr. Kat Hicks, the director of Pluralsight Flow's Developer Success Lab on Stack Overflow podcast. Hicks studied the socio-cognitive factors and progress behind how people learn and achieve success. And she's written about what makes developers prone to feeling imposter syndrome. A conversation with Hicks got us interested in what's going on behind the imposter syndrome conversation. For instance, what does it tell us about the industry that so many developers identify with the concept of imposter syndrome? For instance, sorry, how does our emphasis on imposter syndrome keep us from having bigger, harder conversations about how to improve life for developers, and what should organizations be doing to support their dev team? So this doesn't just talk about it from an individual perspective. It's going to capture it from a group or a team perspective, because generally when you work in any company, you're going to work in a department, and that department typically has teams. And this is talking about how to care for developers, that group of individuals, and their unique needs as it relates to other team members within the organization, whether it be marketing, sales, frontline employees, etc. So, what makes developers feel like imposters? No industry is immune to imposter syndrome, but certain aspects of how software developers work can leave them particularly vulnerable to feeling imposterism. Technology and best practices are constantly evolving, which means that software developers have to embrace a culture of continuous learning, always open to acquiring new skills or polishing existing ones, rather than believing they have nothing left to learn. there's always something new to learn, which means there's always something you don't know how to do. As the saying goes, the more you learn, the less you know. The dark side of empirism is the Dungeon Kruger effect. So, if you get into this thing, software development, you are a lifelong learner. You have to enjoy learning because the technology industry is going to consistently change. And I mean, businesses have to continue to evolve with the times. You think about a cable provider, right? Starting out with just cable television, and that was the thing. And then most providers started offering some form of internet and a few other digital technologies to kind of keep up with the time. And now, if you look at where we are in today's society, a lot of video content is being streamed and days of cable television are done. I don't have cable television anymore, but I can remember a time where I had cable television and it was relevant. It felt like the thing that I must have. But now I don't even watch television like that. And I'm sure most of you probably don't watch a lot of it either. Yep. Good morning. Yep. Just wanting to have a little discussion about imposter syndrome. This particular article found on Stack Overflow I thought was really good. And I had a very good discussion with a coworker of mine as it relates to this. And our makeup is a little interesting as it relates to the workforce. And we both kind of find ourselves experiencing this indirectly. But I'm going to talk more about that later. So people tend to gain more confidence in their abilities when they can acquire new skill sets incrementally, according to Hicks. But software engineers don't doesn't always seem to reward or even allow incremental learning. Instead, Hicks explained it's just learn Python or learn React. This way of looking at things makes new skill sets loom like monoliths too intimidating to approach. So basically, this is just saying that we're always, as a software developer, you're expected to learn new skills. Like I said, you get into this because you are someone that's passionate about learning. And if you aren't passionate about learning, you probably won't find yourself in this industry or don't find yourself growing very much because you have to continue to evolve. You have to continue to pick up new concepts and new things. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself behind. Many devs also feel intense pressure to upskill with whatever time is left over from their day jobs. They spend their time away from work learning new languages, contributing to open source projects, and compiling a portfolio, working in other words. For plenty of developers, it feels like the choices between sacrificing necessary recharge time and non-work obligations or flattering in their careers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of us can relate to that. You're going to work your 9 to 5, and then after that 9 to 5, you have to continue to work on yourself, whether it be a personal portfolio, a personal project, doing something for a friend or a coworker, learning a new language for work. That ever evolving cycle in the developer space is something that never continues or never slows down, right? Because you're going to always have to learn, and you're not going to always have the time to learn on the job. Most employers give you time to train and to learn new skills, but as a developer, that the time that's required to pick up something new, that learning curve is a little faster than what it is with other groups in the organization. So you just got to kind of keep that in mind and know that comes with the territory, if you will. The runaway pressure on devs to learn new skill, languages, and frameworks can trap them in what Hicks describes as a stress cycle, a form of psychological conditioning where you associate learning with high stress environments. When learning seems stressful, high cost, and low reward, people avoid situations where they're challenged to develop new skills, a vicious cycle that amplifies feelings of impostricism. Excuse me, yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. Having to keep up and having to continue to learn and want to maintain relevancy next to the next your coworker is going to be a level of stress that you're going to always feel regardless of the industry, but particularly in the developer space, and especially with the way times are now. You think about the evolution of AI and how it can do a lot of that ground level junior developer type work. If you aren't finding ways to stand out, then you could find yourself a little more expendable than someone else that is doing things to stand out. And that's going to bring a level of stress, right? This is how you make your money, how you take care of your family. And if someone impacts that, that's going to cause a level of stress because now you have to figure out, how do I pick up where I left off and maintain the current lifestyle or maintain the current home that I currently have for my family. So totally get it. The explosion of Gen AI and AI powered coding tools making feeling like imposters more inevitable than ever as people who scramble to add AI prompt engineering and other skills to their repertoires. But while many organizations claim to support devs and seeking opportunities to learn at work, too many fail to recognize or reward time spent learning or teaching new skills, focusing instead on devs quantif- quantifiable output, code commits, and PRs. It's business is business. It's going to always be about your productivity. How efficient are you? Are you expendable? Are you someone that we can rely on? Are you someone that we can grow with? And a lot of companies are gonna give you a lot of on the job time to train and learn new skills that is going to be expected for you to pick up outside of work. So this isn't something that is unique just to the developer space. It's something that you're going to experience probably in most jobs in today's world. You're not going to have time to learn on the job. You're going to have to pick those skills up on your own. And the thing is that as the company continues to evolve and continues to grow, you're going to be expected to keep up with them. And if you can't keep up with them, then they're going to look to replace you and bring someone else in. That's just the ugly side of business. The dev community is no exception to that rule. Let me know what your thoughts are on the topic in the chat. I'd love to get some perspective and feedback on some of the things that you're experiencing. So if you like coding in the dark, in a qualitative research project involving more than 2 dozen software developers and engineers, Hicks identified a significant tension between the work the coders writers needed to do to understand code and the work most likely to be rewarded in a professional evaluation. For its like coded in the dark, the need for learning cultures within coding teams. Hicks evaluated 25 full-time coders who completed a debugging task and an in-depth interview on their learning, problem solving, and feedback experiences while onboarding to an unfamiliar collaborative code base. Okay, so did a case study on a team of 25 developers in a specific scenario to kind of get their thoughts on different topics that are relevant in the coding space. In the interviews, Hicks found that code review often did not get recognized. Excuse me, Hicks found that code review often did not recognize code writers' effort when it did not result in the lines of code. In spite of stated ideas about knowledge sharing, Hicks writers, this works was often contradicted with negative cues from colleagues about what was truly valued. This tension was exacerbated by code writers' fears about not looking like an engineer and their desire to perform to the expectations of the environment. In response to the tension, the code writers devised from their own learning and from the invisible work of knowledge transfer, leaving future collaborators without guidance in their own ramp up to unfamiliar code. As a result, code writers frequently express a poignant loneliness, even in highly resourced teams. Wow. Yep, I sure will be coding in a little bit. I'm gonna code a daily tracker in Next.js in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. Appreciate it, Fazil, man. Thanks for stopping by, brother. It's something that we all kind of struggle with, not that feeling of not doing enough or being good enough. And this article kind of talks about it. And I want to share a little bit of personal experience about it as well to help someone else out that might be struggling with it. But yeah, I am going to be jumping in the code in a little bit. This loneliness and isolation can, as we suggested above, exhiberate feelings of imposter syndrome at work and fear of not looking like an engineer, which probably sounds familiar to many people reading this, especially interpreted as imposter syndrome. But it's worth asking whether imposter syndrome is a diagnosis or merely the symptom. No, I agree. A lot of the work that we do, the phase of imposter syndrome been there. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, you're over it. That's good, man. Yeah, a lot of people still struggle with it, man. I was talking with a coworker the other day, and she was struggling with it as well. You've been doing something for so long. We both kind of been in our line of work for 20 plus years, and the thought of doing something different can be a little uneasy. But the thing is you acquire so many skills in your current space, you really are better suited to do something different. You just don't have that confidence that you need in order to do it. And that's kind of where this comes in at. But kudos to you, man, for overcoming yours, man. What did you do to kind of get past that hurdle? I'd love to hear about it. Just because you're paranoid. Here's another expression you might have heard. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't after you. And split implicit in the definition of imposter syndrome is the understanding that you are not an imposter. You might lack confidence, but you don't truly lack skills. Like I said, couldn't agree more. You more than likely have the skills, you just don't realize it because you're so immune, or you're so focused on what it is that you're doing and nervous that you're not good enough, that you're not giving yourself enough credit for the things that you actually can do and that you actually are strong at. And that's where this is something that's relevant to folks, but struggle with understanding how to get past it. Just forced myself. I was a software analyst, so yeah, was sink or swim. Oh yeah, you were in a very competitive industry, man, and it was sink or swim. And you probably didn't get a lot of time to do some of the things that you wanted to do, depending on how things were set up at your workspace, man. But I get it. Kudos to you, though, man. Sink or swim. You got no choice but to either tighten up or get out. Only the strongest survive, right? But what if it's other people who see you as an imposter? Imposter syndrome is not a syndrome at all. It's instead an accurate expectation that people will be more skeptical and worse to you than other people with a similar record. Yeah, look, that feeling of always feeling as if you're not good enough and then you're comparing yourself to someone else, man, it'll make anybody paranoid. I don't think there's anything that helps besides just putting in work. Yeah, you're probably right. And that's going to be consistent with all industries, man. The more work you put in, the more confidence you're going to build. And as long as you stay focused on what you bring to the table and doing the very best you can, that's really all that you can do. And trying to be a good teammate to others and being someone that contributes to the team is key in those things. But I agree more. At the end of the day, it's all about putting in work and overcoming your fears and just realizing that, hey, you only get one life, so you might as well take advantage of it and do the absolute best with it that you can. Couldn't agree more. We'd love to get anybody else thoughts in the chat as well too. Article focused on women, but their critique of imposter syndrome speaks to a broader tendency to ascribe structural problems to individual failings. In other words, if you feel like an imposter at work, you are the problem, not the company that fails to recognize the contribution of coworkers who make assumptions about their abilities based on your gender, race, age, or education background. From this perspective, imposter syndrome starts to seem like a convenient explanation for problems that are bigger than anyone's flagging confidence. Yeah, I agree. It's really based on you and how you feel. Others can't control how you feel in certain scenarios. It's going to all be based upon your confidence, the skills you bring to the table, and how adequate you can do your job. You can't necessarily expect someone else to build your confidence. Yeah, there are things you can do to kind of help with that, but ultimately it's self-esteem and it's up to you on how you feel about yourself. I couldn't agree more. So then the article talks about what's the solution. None of this is to say that imposter syndrome isn't real or that developers aren't wildly and perhaps especially likely to feel like imposters at work. The highly specialized nature of software development, the pressure to constantly re-upskill, and comparative isolation of developers, many working remote, many as individual contributors, all contributed to how developers identify with the idea of imposter syndrome. Yep, all of these things go hand in hand. Working solo by yourself, not being in the office with someone else, or just not having that reassurance that some folks do need in order to progress well is going to contribute to that imposter syndrome. So couldn't agree more. These are little things that play a big part. Not having someone come and give you a pat on the back, or someone to say good job, or celebrating small wins. Those are little things that companies do that indirectly, or excuse me, directly contribute to someone's confidence. And depending upon your work environment, if that isn't present, that can contribute to feeling as if you're not good enough, when in actuality you probably are doing a good job. You're just in your head about it. But while advice to embrace the suck or stop cutting yourself short on the job market is absolutely valid and helpful for some people who feel like imposters, adjusting your own approach isn't going to solve the problem if it lies with the colleagues who don't perceive you as a real developer, or organization that doesn't value your work and make you feel it. The onus is on the organization as a whole to create the workplace that make continuous learning an integral part of the job, allowing developers to acquire new skills incrementally in a supportive environment and self-serve knowledge when they need it, treats employees with equitable and an inclusive of everyone, understands developer confidence and happiness at work as a collective responsibility, not an individual problem. This is a very good paragraph, because ultimately the responsibility isn't on the organization. It would be nice if the organization did more to kind of help with these things, but really it's up to you to make sure that you are putting in that work, like my man Fazil said, that you are grinding, that you're coming in and doing what you have to do every day. You're enhancing your skills. That's where your confidence comes in at. And as you're contributing to the team and you're giving good code and giving code reviews and giving good feedback, the organization will see that and they'll reinvest in you. That'd be nice if the company cared more about your feelings and wanted to make sure that you felt confident. But ultimately, that's going to be on you. And like I said earlier, in the developer space, you're thought upon to be a lifelong learner, right? That's part of the reason that you got into this, because technology continues to evolve. You got to evolve with it. So the expectation is that you're going to always continue to learn. You're going to always continue to evolve. You're not going to get stagnant in the role and in the space that you're currently in. So if you're not putting in work on your own and you're not doing these things outside of time allotted by the company, then that's on you. You're going to feel behind. You're going to lack confidence. You're going to feel as if you're not good enough, because quite frankly, you probably aren't if others on the team are putting in work, but you're being left behind because you are doing enough to get by. You're treating this just as a job and not necessarily as a career. But it would be nice if organizations gave more time for training and things like that. You got to kind of remember, from a company perspective, there's a budget, there's certain expectations, and if you aren't being productive or doing something relevant to the job, they're not necessarily going to pay for it. But most employers do give a certain amount of hours and time dedicated just for training and ongoing growth. But if your company doesn't, you probably should suggest it, because it is something that's needed. But if it is not there, don't let that be an excuse or a crutch to hold you back. Still understand that you got to put in work and you got to put in time. So whether the company gives it to you or not, you got to kind of find ways to make it and get it. So at Stack Overflow, we're on the record about how a learning centered environment is central to a developer happiness and success. And our annual developer survey has shown that the access to learning opportunities at work is very important to devs. An important part of cultivating this kind of environment is empowering your teams to banish feelings of impostricism, and the power to do that lies as much with the organization and your society as the individuals who work there. If you're thinking about making a change in career, this article is about how to land a career pivot as a good starting point. And yeah, disagree with the article, not you, not the org's fault. It's hard to, oh man, I 1,000,000% you can't rely on your organization for this, man. I totally agree. It would be nice if a company did that, but man, you come to work to be productive. They're paying you to do a job. If you aren't doing your code reviews, or if you aren't working your tickets in the queue in a timely manner, if you aren't doing your debugging sessions, if you aren't collaborating with your teams, man, that's on you. I couldn't agree more. And it's disappointing that a lot of people think that it's the company's responsibility to give you that time and to give you that space. But ultimately, it's up to you. You can't expect your company to do those things for you. You got to take the initiative and get there yourself. And depending upon how long you've been working and the generation that you might be growing up in, I hate to say it this bluntly, but most people don't necessarily care about your feelings in that regard. They're going to be more so concerned with your productivity. Trusting you, the only way I know to fix that is to change the teams. Recovering from that is a highly impossible. That's right. Once the team lose, I couldn't agree more, man. Once a team member lose confidence in you, especially the team, look, you got to find a way to get that back. And sometimes you don't get the opportunity to get that back. It could be lost. It's really just up to you and how hard you work and making sure you stand on top of the things you need to be on top of. And don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Don't be afraid to seek guidance. And look, find time and find ways to get yourself more involved, to do more studying, to do more learning. Stop scrolling social media just for leisure and pleasure, but spend a little more time reading articles and studying up on problem solving skills and different things that you need to enhance your skills at work, so you become more marketable and you become someone that they want to invest more in. Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. So look, I just wanted to go over this article to share a message with everybody that I thought was really relevant. I read it. I thought it was a good read. Don't necessarily agree with all the points, but I could understand why as a developer, you work in ISO typically. You don't have a lot of contact with the organization, but your impact is probably greater than most people within the organization because you're running a website, you're in charge of data, you're in charge of security, you're in charge of a lot of different things. But you tend to be the group or the team that's kind of the afterthought because you aren't customer facing, you typically aren't client facing, you're just behind the scenes doing work. That said, there are things that I know that you would like from a work experience perspective, as this article kind of laid out, but you got to kind of give a realization that from the business side of things, those things may not come to fruition because the business objective is going to be a little different than what your personal objective is. And yeah, just because you're a lifelong learner in this space, that lifelong learner doesn't mean you can rely on the company to kind of give you that opportunity to learn. Sometimes you got to take it on your own and make the most of it and find ways for yourself to continue to learn and not depend on others to do it for you. So I thought this one was pretty cool. But I am going to jump in and do a little bit of coding here for a second. So let me know what you think. Let me see what some of the comments are saying and see what some of the others. Most developers are frauds. The Pareto principle is especially strong in software development. Instead of 80-20, it's more like 95-5. My Coleridge Brooks law is a single good developer working alone will outperform that same developer leading a team of any number of mediocre developers. Could be true. That could certainly be true, especially depending upon the skill set of those developers and that lone developer. Now, if he's someone with the intermediate or senior level skill set, he probably will be more productive than a leader leading some mediocre developers because as you continue to grow, like I said, it's more so about your vision and being able to secure things more so than you writing code. It's more about you giving a good experience, being more efficient with your code, not having lags, not having bugs, things like that, than how great you can write a business card in code or how great you can code a website. So I agree. What do you accomplish bringing Raymond Carver into this? I even trolling there, took the words right out of my mouth. If you're not an imposter, you might lack confidence, but you don't truly lack skills, right? To offer, I bet to defer. If you're doubting yourself this much, or if other people see you as an imposter, you might just be one. It only takes a few minutes of browsing SO to encounter countless questions by professionals who prefer their clients to make. You scratch your head and wonder how could you possibly be getting paid for this if you are posting such a question? Who would hire you and why? Because you sold yourself for something which you are not. That's a word for that. There's a word for that. I agree. I think it's a thin line. Obviously you have to have your own confidence. The only way you can get your own confidence is by working hard, like my man Faisal said. I do think the company does have a small responsibility in giving you feedback, and if you're getting feedback on the work that you're doing, that should help build your confidence if you're doing good work and you have a good team giving you feedback. Kevin, I agree entirely. Would also note that the word is spelled impostor, not imposter, which, if it existed, would not mean something quite different. As for the topic, I had it briefly in 77, but with good reason, the senior dev had just quit, and I was landed it with a product to support I knew little about. Fortunately, the management had some faith in me, and I also knew how to fix my morale. Well, I think the key in everything you're saying there is that you took the initiative. You knew how to fix it. You knew how to get what you need. Was objectively. Hey, well, at least, man, you're very honest and very authentic about where you were and where you are in your journey. That's a very good attitude to have, man. Not a lot of people have that, and not a lot of people have that perspective. People look for others to kind of give them confidence and to give them that reassurance, but really, it has to start with you. Everyone else is kind of just that icing on the cake, if you will, but you got to kind of bring it to the table yourself. Couldn't agree more. Just to comment on, I appreciate this article. Imposter syndrome is real for me, as I'm sure it is for many developers, if not most. Just to comment on the need to up skills and continue learning. I love learning. It's enjoyable for me. I look forward to Saturday mornings where I can spend 90 minutes, 2 hours learning this new skill on employer site. But not all employers value an environment where one can learn new skills, and not all developers are interested in learning anything new. When you combine those two traits at one company or organization, you have a weird situation. Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that this gentleman or Rod structures out time on Saturdays morning is 90 minutes to 2 hours to learn a new skill. Most companies do value learning new skills. They just don't want to give you the time or pay for the time for you to do it. They just expect you to do it on your own and you to bring those skills to the table so they can get the most out of you as a team member. That's ultimately what they're going after. This is slightly irrelevant, but any article that references the Dunning-Kruger effect raises an immediate red flag. I mean, if you refer to popular effects that doesn't exist in reality, or at least haven't been proven to exist, then how valid are you with other points? I get it. I get it, get it, get it. Regardless of what objective reality is, dealing with the narrative that you tell yourself before talk, taking input from others will ensure you remain in sync with reality as much as possible. And someone put in some code, if not an imposter, and if this feels like an imposter, great, nothing to do here. Love self. Ah, gotta love Dev's sense of humor. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, I agree. I agree to the earlier comments. Why is mediocre developer a fraud or imposter? It enlists comments like these that leave many beginning novice or otherwise imperfect developers to doubt themselves further and feel like they aren't worthy. We're all learning. Maybe go back to the article as it seems like even Charlie missed the point. I get it, man. That's getting in touch with that and empathizing with that new developer that's just kind of on their journey. And I think there's a place for that. But I think that as if you've already done the work to become a developer, you've gone through the interview process, you've gotten the job, that has to give a certain level of confidence there. And I don't think that you can rely on someone else to kind of maintain and build upon that. I think someone else can add to it and help with it, but it's going to be up to you to kind of maintain and build upon that because at the end of the day, it's on you to manage and grow your own skills and grow your own career because you're doing this with a purpose. And if you're not putting in work, not putting in time, not doing what you need to do to feel more confident and grow as an individual, then that's on you. I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm sick of it. I love coding, but the changes that is no more. This no longer works now. Enough already. The changes and added technologies are so out of control, it's impossible to keep up. I have bookshelves of books, all of which I've read, and yet there's a mountain of material I need to learn to stay on top of everything. I have heard this complaint even from younger developers. The real issue is that we have to stop letting uneducated tech weenies create the garbage and go back to school approach to writing languages and frameworks, not because they think it's cool. It's not cool, not smart. It's convoluted. And the whole thing is a train wreck waiting to happen. I'm sick of it. And most of the guys I know just want to get out of it because it's such a mess now. Yeah, the barriers to entry is different than what it used to be. And with so many different approaches to learning, there isn't one method or one approach that's going to work for everyone. You have your school approach, which is going to teach you more so software engineering and kind of go from a low level language to building out machine learning projects and things of that sort. You got coding boot camps, which are a little more targeted, more specific, whether you're looking to be a software engineer, web developer, etc. And then you have the self-taught approach. And with all of these, you have the ability, as long as you have access to the internet, you have a credit card that you can put content on the web, depending on how you're deploying it, you can basically do and build whatever you want to do. That's the beauty of being a developer because you have that skill set and your imagination can pretty much run wild because you could do anything that you want to do. That said, as you're building things and you're educating folks, if you aren't doing it the right way and you aren't taking into consideration vulnerabilities, then yeah, you can run into having a bunch of mess and not knowing what you're doing and making things harder for others as you come out with this new tool, this new technology, but it's really not well written, not well done, and it's causing more problems than really what it's worth. I would persist that an additional factor in the prevalence of imposter syndrome is the silly salaries that make developers command in the world of high tech. Currently, the dark side of being paid a giant pile of money is the feeling that you aren't really earning it and you don't belong there. I disagree. I think developers carry a big responsibility. Like I said, they're not always customer or client facing. They're behind the scenes, and they're responsible for managing data and security breach. And if those things aren't maintained adequately, you can cost the company hundreds of millions and billions of dollars and cause them to go out of business if you aren't doing things the right way, and in a way that is safe, secure for the business, and most importantly, secure for the end user. So I think that kind of speaks to the high demand in salary. But I agree, with much is given, much is expected, and everything's gonna have a dark side. Even celebrities that are multi-time millionaires, they have more problems than the common man, if you will. So I get it. I get it. So I just want to talk a little bit about this article. I know that, may not necessarily agree with everything that's written, but I thought it was well written, and I thought it gives a perspective on imposter syndrome and why you feel that way and what are some things that you can do about it. That salary stuff is biz. There are studies out there that the way salary has nothing to do with it. I agree. It really doesn't. And to be honest with you, it really isn't a motivating factor, because once you start getting your paycheck and life goes, you're still going to run into problems or things that you don't agree with on the job. And that salary is great, but it's not going to necessarily keep you there. What'll keep you there is you knowing that you got bills and responsibilities to take care of, and you got to feed your family. That's what's going to keep you there. Software development is a job, it's a skill, it's fun. We all love it. But at the end of the day, it's still a job. And you still got to wake up. You still got to go to work. You still got to put in work. You still got to be on time. You got to be a team player. You got to be productive. You got to be efficient. And you got to be someone that the company values. And if you're not that, they're going to move on from you, period, point blank in the discussion. Just as simple as that. So, like, I am going to transition to building a little simple project here that basically is going to allow you to store some things that I want to use local storage, and I'm using nextjs, and basically just going to give you the ability to kind of store some things that you like to keep track of from a day perspective. Right, that I read a book today. It's basically a little daily tracker, just having a little fun. And this could be a way that you can kind of get past that imposter syndrome or feeling as if you're not adequate, keeping track of the things that you do. Ultimately, I agree. I'm a little more old school in my approach that, hey, you just got to put in the work. But I could empathize with those that feel as if they need something a little different to kind of help with their confidence in their journey in life, whether it be with development or people leadership or finance or anything else. So just gonna have a little bit of fun, chill, relax, and build something. Nothing too demanding. Let me get stuff set up here. Mm, 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 mm. Mm, 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 mm. Woo, that's a lot of me. Sorry about that. Yeah, there we go. So going to use Next.js for this. So we'll go ahead and crank that up now. Put a directory on the desktop. We'll name this next project. And man, I've been coding for about 8 years now. Started out self-taught, then I went to Colorado Tech, and I've just been having fun on YouTube more so as a hobby and a lot of freelance work, and put a couple sites out on the web. How long you been at it, man? Got my degree from Colorado Tech. Yes, at latest space, and I'm gonna put it in this current directory, and we'll say been thinking about yes to TypeScript, yes Lint, yes to Tailwind, no source, yes to the app router, yes TurboPack, no import alias. Give it a few minutes to finish installing. Um, oh man, it's like that. No, 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 no. Just look, man. I just like to be authentic with people, man, and you can't always think that something is given to you. Sometimes you just got to put in work, got to put in time, you got to put in effort. And if you're not doing that, you can't necessarily expect the results that you might want because you haven't put in the work to earn it. It's simple as that. Oh wow. So what language do you use? I know you don't. Well, you may use JavaScript. You never use Next. I'm sorry, my bad. Never use Next. I like it, man. It's fairly lightweight. Ain't a weird kid, man. You're inquisitive. I bet you're strong at problem solving. But what framework did you learn? For me, I got my when everything clicked, if you will, for me was with Java. I like JavaScript. I know it's easy to get out on the web and do a lot of things with it, pretty common. But I prefer to code in Java. I just love the structure, and there's a few ways to do things, but not 100 different ways to do things. It just make it a better experience to me. How long have some of you out there been coding? Understood. Yeah, it's all right. I like a little Golang too. Yeah, man. We are at mine. We're all over the place. It really depends on what interface you're looking at. We've got some Java, some React. They're introducing Next for some projects coming up as well, man. It's kind of all over the place, but it's all good. All you're really doing is learning the syntax for the most part. And you certainly know this, but for the most part, most things are the same. You're just learning a different syntax with it. Um, I'm gonna take a quick step back, see if I can get a cup of coffee right quick. I'll be right back.